What's up, manifestation queens? This is your manifestie bestie, and I am here with Greta Dunne. Yep, whoop whoop.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I am so excited. Just so everyone knows, I met Greta in Avoca for a coffee, and I literally was like, stop talking, because you were giving me such good information for the podcast. I just really wish it was recorded. I was telling you, we need like 2 episodes.
Yeah,
You're a super manifester.
yeah, probably without knowing it, as you say, we were brought up to be manifestors in Ireland just because we were taught to kind of say our prayers at night, which were always gratitude prayers, kind of, God our Father, I've come to say, thank you for your love today, thank you for my family and all the friends you give to me. Like my dad used to make us do that every night. And now that I think about it as an adult, I'm like, that was just a little gratitude prayer.
Yeah, and I don't think people know this, but when I was trying for a baby, my mom was always like to me, say a prayer to Mary, because Mary was a Mother Mary, okay. Right? And I used to always pray to Mary and Gabriel, the angel, right? Because he was the angel that came down to her to tell her she was pregnant. But anyway, people are like, oh, manifestation, that's a load of devil's work or whatever. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because there was this script in the Bible, Matthew, I'll never forget it, because it was actually on the Secret app. I had the Secret app on my phone from Rhonda Byrne, who you are well aware of. And it was Matthew 21:22. Whatever you ask in prayer, believe, and you shall receive. Mm-hmm. I'm like, manifestation is in the Bible, people.
Yeah. But even without the religious side of it, like my dad would have always, every time we sat down for dinner, my dad, before we ate would be like, we're so lucky. Aren't we so lucky? And he'd always say, we're so lucky in everything we did. And now I can see my sisters and my brother doing it and my mom and stuff, just like random points of the day or the week, just being like, oh my God, we're so lucky.
We are so lucky.
Yeah, exactly. We're so lucky.
Yeah. But speaking of Rhonda Byrne,
so
you went to Australia, didn't you?
Yes, I think I was 21, and I didn't know anything about manifesting or The Secret or anything. And I went to Byron Bay, which is like the hippie capital of the world, I think. And so it was just full of people who were all about manifesting. And they talked about this book, The Secret, and I just got into it straight away. I was like, I love this. I was very impressionable, I suppose. But I think I always, I would have been very open-minded. I still am. So I loved the positivity of it, I suppose, and the gratitude aspect of it. And so I read the book there, and then I got really into it. And I think I got really into it on kind of a surface level, materialistic side, where I was like, I'm going to manifest a lighter, and I'm going to manifest a mojito, and all this stuff. And it was working. I think it worked because, I was being validated all the time that it was working. And I think that was probably because I was actually in a very good vibe space. It's all about your own energy or whatever. And I was probably just very relaxed, and naive isn't the word, but just, I didn't have a huge amount of responsibility. I was a bartender. I was living with 8 Argentinian guys. Like, there wasn't a huge amount of pressure. So everything was just kind of flowing to me. And it worked. It worked for a long time. Then I moved to Greece, and I worked there for a while. And I was kind of practicing a long time. I think, like, I don't know about you, but you lose it then. You stop. It falls away for some reason.
Does it fall away, or are you just naturally living your life? You're pretty much glass half full. Things are going well. Like,
yeah, maybe that's it. You think you've got the hang of it, or you don't need to do it anymore. Yeah. Actually, that's probably true. I think there are definitely the times in your life where you're struggling. That's when you really want to do it. And actually,
that's when you need it most.
I know. And that's actually the hardest time, because you're feeling so sad or frustrated or pressured that you're not in the flow of receiving. And it's on the days that you feel great and you feel like you're winning. That's when everything comes much easier, which is kind of bittersweet.
Yeah. And it's totally true, because the gratitude box, our first product in Pause Penny, came after the loss of the baby during pregnancy. And I knew I had to pull myself out of this. Like, I we all have to grieve and go through things, but at some point you have to pull yourself out of it. And it is during
it's really hard.
These times. And I'm doing that 21-day manifestation challenge now, and people are messaging me saying, like, I am getting kicked in the ass, screwed by the universe. And I'm trying to say to them, please go back to your gratitude practice. If you live in a safe home, if you have food to eat today, if your kids are healthy today or can go to school and be educated, can you just take, and it is hard.
It's very hard. It's very hard because it just feels like this doesn't work. Or, you're in a space of, I'm single, I'm not meeting anyone, I'm absolutely broke, I don't have a job, I've got a sick parent, I'm sick myself. This is bullshit. Like, this is, and you forget all the things that you've learned and all the good times that it has been validated to you. So while they're the times that you need to believe the most, they can be the hardest. And that's where the gratitude lists come in and stuff. But, there's even times when you're making the gratitude lists and you're just like, that there's so many things to be grateful for. Like, I have eyes to see. I have a hand to write this list, I have a roof over my head. Like, the most basic things, but sometimes it's just hard to come out of it. It's this consistency that I think is the key, I suppose, in those times.
It is absolutely about consistency. You've got to sometimes, like, you're not going to be motivated all the time
No,
to do
you're
it.
not.
You're not going to want to do it. And that's why even with the gratitude box that we have, it's one thing. Because when I was going through the grief, I was like, I'm not writing 10 things down. Because it's just going to be, I'm grateful for my house, I'm grateful for my husband, I'm grateful for my... Whereas now, I write one thing, I really get detailed about it, and I usually try and pick a person, and I share. Today was for a girl, Olivia Hunt, who's a great podcast, and I sent it to her, and she was like, "Oh, this is so nice,"
Yeah, absolutely.
So I try and keep it to people because people are really all that matter, right?
That's so true.
I heard Rhonda Byrne from The Secret say that you need to write down all of your goals. And that focuses the brain. And I was like, yeah, it does. And that is why I created the Pause Penny manifestation box. If you want to manifest something in your life, get rid of the vision board and get your manifestation box. Because you will write down what you want, and there are 7 steps. It is going to focus your mind and help you visualize. And I promise you this, what you create in your mind is far more powerful than anything on your vision board. So out with the vision board, in with the manifestation box, and grab it at pausepenny.com. So you told me about your time during COVID.
Yes. So that was, I'm just trying to think back. So yeah, I kind of started my business.
We'll start with the business. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So that was kind of 2019. I was designing a business. It was a blog marketplace. And I had just moved home with my parents because my housemates, basically we'd all split up. Like, everyone had a way to go, somewhere to go. And I was living down the road, thankfully, very grateful. My parents lived down the road, huge privilege. I was able to move back in with them. It was meant to be a very short-term thing before I could get another place, basically. And then, of course, COVID hit. I think I got COVID extremely early. I don't even think I recognized it when I got it. I had a temperature, everyone has a COVID story, but I got a temperature in, I think it was March, and then in May started to get chest pains.
And this is 2020.
This is 2020.
Yeah.
So it was all very,
new,
hysterical, and nobody really knew what was happening. It was very scary for obviously everybody. So I was just getting these chest pains, and I actually thought they were anxiety because I was so afraid that my parents were going to get COVID or I was going to bring it into the house. They were both in their 70s. My dad had recently got his leg amputated. My mom had gotten over cancer. I was like, these are very vulnerable people. I don't want to be the person to bring it in. I'm so afraid of what's going to happen if they get it, whatever. So I went to the doctor. I was like, I think I'm suffering from anxiety. I've got this pain in my chest, whatever. And she was like, she listened to my chest. She was like, I'm not sure that's anxiety. Sent me into hospital. Sent me into a cardiologist straight away. The cardiologist was like, I'm just going to show you the screen here. She was like, this is supposed to be black and all I could see was white. She was like, so that's just fluid around your heart. There's just a lot of fluid there. It's not great, And I was like, what is happening? And she was like, you know what, like, I cannot tell you why this has happened. You're a very healthy young girl. We do not know why this has happened, but it is COVID. So I was like, oh, okay. So she said, take these tablets and you'll be in bed for kind of 2 weeks. And it was like 10 months that
And were you back at home working, or
so I was back at home, but I got into bed from the hospital. I remember they couldn't admit me because it was just wild. Got into bed, and I remember my mom being like, I'll bring you up, a meal.
Hot water bottle.
And that was it. Like that I did not get out of bed then again. I couldn't. At one stage I was on 36 tablets a day, and I was just like staring out the window. The pain in my chest was so sore. And, I because I really believe in manifesting, I do. And I really, I would be a huge subscriber to Joe Dispenza and, your body and your mind and heal yourself and all that stuff. And so I was I was lying in the bed being like, you're well, you do not feel this. This is not real. This is just something that doesn't exist, all this stuff, which can be gaslighting yourself in a way when you're in that much pain and it is real. And I would try to have a shower, and I'd be in the shower and I'd be like, you're 100%, you don't feel any pain. You don't feel, you're healthy. I do believe you can heal yourself, but I was sick. And, for anyone listening who has a chronic pain or chronic illness, it's very hard to hear somebody be like, you can heal your body yourself. Like, that's difficult. That's a difficult pill to swallow, so to speak,
Because you really have to push past the pain.
Yeah, exactly. And pain is a real thing. Now, I remember a doctor friend of mine who would not subscribe to any of this manifestation, any of the woo-woo stuff. I mean, she is a scientist. And she said to me during the time, she said, pain is something in your brain. It's like, your brain is telling you there is pain because it's alerting you to something that's wrong in your body. So if you try and think about that it's kind of not real. Actually, that kind of helped me, because I was like, God, if it's not real, then what is it? It's just an alert. So if I don't know. So I was trying to not feel the pain. If the pain wasn't there, and that's for anyone, if you've got chronic pain, if you've got back pain, if you've got a headache, if the pain isn't there, there is no problem. Like, it's just the pain that's the issue. So anyway, so I was admitted into hospital I can't remember when. And I was there for about a week, and the cardiologist, like, it was a pretty rock bottom time, because I think I felt so guilty that my parents were looking after me when, they didn't need to have to look after me at this stage in their life. And I just felt, how did I get here, kind of thing. And I remember one day the cardiologist said to me, she's reading out my latest results and stuff, and she was like, and I said, when am I going to be able to work again? And she said, she kind of looked at me like I was crazy. She was like, work? She was like, Greta, you can't even climb a set of stairs. You have to forget about work. Like, that's just not going to happen for the moment. And that was really the biggest blow. And I remember thinking, wow, I never realized what a privilege it is to be able to work, because it is a privilege. And when that's taken away from you, especially someone who worked for themselves, like, it's different, I suppose, if I had an employer who was like, your job's here when you get back, or, you're on sick leave or whatever. I was just like, what's going to happen to the business? Like, it hadn't kicked off, but I was still just like, where do I go from here? My sister rang me, and sorry, this is like total, oh my God, boohoo, poor me. Everyone has a COVID story.
But everybody has I have a COVID story. I took Lemsip for 3 days.
No, but
like, that's my COVID story. You were in hospital for what, 10 months, did you say?
No. I was at home on my back for 10 months. I was in hospital but yeah, so my sister rang me at that stage, and she just, she could see I was kind of struggling, and I was like, I don't want to go back home to mom and dad. I just feel so bad. I just feel pathetic. Like, I was like, why can't I look after myself? Or, I was like, why am I married? Why can't there's somebody? Because I think the doctor was like, who's going to pick you up from the hospital? And I was like, my mom, like. So my sister, who lives in Lisbon, said, you know what, just get on a plane, come over here. I will take care of you. You can lie in the sun. You can recover here. So at that stage, I couldn't even think about lifting a bag to the airport, but I started to recover then. They put me on a different medication and they said, you're going to have to sleep for like 14 hours a day for the next like 6 months at least. So I was like, fine, I can deal with that. So they gave me, it was all kind of cocktail of stuff. And as well, they didn't know, like, as you know, these were a respiratory and a cardiologist, two consultants that were looking at me almost like a case study because it was an early long COVID case. I was young. I was fit, and
your health is so important.
It's so important. There was one stage where I really thought, I'm not going to make it. Like, this is it. And so anyway, I went over to Portugal, and I ended up getting a place on my own, and I'd never lived on my own before, and it was like 600 quid a month, in this basically hole in the wall in Lisbon, which didn't have like a cooker or heating, electricity. Really, it was just not. it was fine, and I rested a lot or whatever. But I thought like I'm going to recover here. This is my recovery space, and so I'd like write down every day, like make bed, make coffee, walk for 6 minutes, like try and get yourself better every day.
And I think that that's a really good point for people, is that like writing it down actually does help you focus the brain.
Yeah.
And it just gives you a little goal.
Yeah. Well, the for me, it was the being able to tick that off.
Yeah.
That was just a feeling of accomplishment. Even if it was just making my bed, like that was like, okay, I did something.
And sometimes that's all you can do. Like if you're going through struggling like a health issue or maybe something like grief. Yeah. Sometimes I would wake up and my grateful card would say, I'm grateful I just feel a little bit happy this morning and I showered and I put makeup on.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be my grateful.
Yeah.
And I didn't
and
realize.
Well done for doing that.
Yeah. And I didn't realize how grateful I was to actually wake up happy before. Because all my days were fairly happy before until this crash bang. Mm-hmm. And we're all going to have the crash bangs in our life,
Yeah, definitely. So just being able to do those tiny things and being able to take them off, and it just sounds, so remedial or so like insignificant. And if you're in rock bottom place in your life and you're like, what is it going to make a difference if I write down brush my teeth and then I tick it off? It does make a difference. If you struggle to do that every day, then that's going to make a difference. So yeah, I started to build, and it's about momentum. I started to build up momentum, build back up my confidence. And I was just thinking that whole time, I was like, I just need investment. I just need investment in the company. If I get investment, I can work on the company. And so I did everything. I bought green candles from Tiger, and I carved in 50,000 into the green candle, and I lit the green candle. I threw this kitchen sink at this. I was like,
and
I have to manifest.
Business, so people know. Describe this initial business. Like you explained it to me that it was like kind of like a Shutterstock, but like for blogging, right?
It was, so basically it was, I'd built a platform where bloggers all over the world could basically upload their back catalogue of blogs. So like parenting or food and drink or whatever they were an expert in. My thing was like, everybody's an expert on something, upload your blog, and then I will sell that out to businesses, like a marketplace, and they will get a percentage.
Sorry, just so people know, you worked in a company before and you had gotten huge clicks and like you were, you had done really well before. So this wasn't you just throwing your hand at something.
No.
You were experienced. You knew your shit.
Well, my first business was an online magazine. And so I dealt with a lot of content. I was, we were publishing 52 articles a day in that business. And so I was hitting all my targets with our sponsors and, doing advertorials for big brands and stuff. And basically, it was just understanding an audience and being like, what are they going to click on? And I really understood the 18 to 24-year-old demographic. So I was like, I know what they're going to click on. And so I understood written content very well. I've always liked to write and things. I thought I was going to be a writer, but maybe I still will be. But so that's why I thought that business sold. And I thought, there's an awful lot of content out there that's not being monetized. And a lot of people had blogs, in the early 2010s maybe, and they thought maybe they could make some money from it, and it just became so saturated. And I thought if I could just capture all of those blogs in a net and then index them and tag them and make sure they were easily kind of searchable, and then people could just download them. Like my dad had a wine shop, for example. I thought he could just use a few wine articles for his Facebook page or for their website or whatever, written by a wine blogger. Then my dad's been in the wine industry for 52 years or whatever. And I was like, why can't you write a wine article? And he was like, because I'm not a writer. So it made sense to me that there are writers and there are business people, and they don't necessarily, like, they're not the same person. So so that was the plan. And the platform had been built because I got a grant to build it from the Leo, from local enterprise office. So the bones of it, the skeleton was there, and I kind of had enough traction. I had like 1,200 writers signed up.
And are you working on this while you're in Lisbon?
Yes.
So this is like, so you're resting because you need to rest. You probably don't have as much energy as you'd like, but maybe this is keeping you going a little bit.
I mean, like, obviously the brain fog was big.
Yeah.
Well, it was for me. So I found it very hard to concentrate for more than kind of 15 minutes. So that was another thing on the list. It was like 15 minutes and then take a break, which just sounds crazy. Like now that sounds crazy to me. And again, like if anyone is listening that has the brain fog and it's like, I'm never going to be able to do it, it's little by little. It's not going to be like one day all of a sudden you can concentrate for 4 hours at a time. So that was another thing. I had to kind of train my brain again to concentrate, and then I would take a break, and then I would do 20 minutes the next day, and then maybe the next day I'd do nothing, and so I was like, okay, I just need investment. So I just kept like contacting people. Eventually I got a call with Enterprise Ireland. I mean, this is such a long story short, but essentially they were like, we will invest in this, which is an absolute miracle because Enterprise Ireland are tough, and
it's manifested. You wrote it in the candle.
I wrote it everywhere.
It was going to happen.
Yeah. And I also had this, I don't know if anyone listens to or if you follow Abraham Hicks, but Abraham Hicks was hugely important for me then because they do all these little YouTube, videos, and I just found it amazingly comforting. But they have this thing called the vortex.
Yeah.
So the vortex is basically your spinning plane or whatever they call it. And to me, it was just like all of the things that would be part of your perfect life or your perfect day. And so I would like write down all these things that would build up to my perfect life. And that's actually a great exercise because it's a bit like the conversation of like, what would you do if you won the lottery with your friends? It's a great conversation. Everyone has their own thing. You learn a lot about people because you're like, wow, that's the opposite of what I do.
I'm going to Bali, guys, by the way.
But, it's such a fun thing to write down. Like, I want, oysters for breakfast or whatever it is you want. So that was very important to me at the time. I was like, get into the vortex, think about being this entrepreneur who's really successful and all that stuff.
And that's visualization.
Yes, really important. So yeah, Enterprise Ireland finally got the call and they said, yeah, we'll invest. They said, we'll only invest if you move back to Dublin. This was in like kind of December time, Christmas time. And I was like, oh my God. I had nothing in Lisbon, to be honest. Lisbon was really tough. Everything that could have gone wrong in Lisbon went wrong. Like, I lost my keys. I was locked in my house for 2 days. Like, my phone didn't work. I had no electricity in the apartment for a couple of days. I got robbed. Like, there were just, I actually felt like sometimes the universe is like, you need to get out of here. This is just not where you're supposed to be. Even though you're trying, and I remember like, trying to go down to the water and have a coffee and romanticize my life. Like on my last night, I remember I was like, you know what, Lisbon has been really hard for me, but I'm just going to take myself out for dinner and I'm just going to, be the person that goes out for dinner or whatever. I also think personally, it's really hard to enjoy things. Like I love being on my own and I love my own company and all that kind of stuff. But like going out for dinner and stuff, I prefer it with friends or family or your partner or whatever. Anyway, went out for dinner on my own. I picked this random restaurant and this man was there, this very Portuguese man. He was kind of surprised that he had a customer kind of thing. And I was like, this seems fine. They're playing kind of jazz music or whatever. And he was like, I just said, oh, just bring me whatever you have. So he brought me out this dish and I just kind of noticed this something in the corner of my eye. There were basically cockroaches like walking along behind my head. And then I noticed there was one like on the side of my plate. And he was like, come and join us, me and my family or whatever. So I got up and I just felt really rude because I'd sat down and he'd made this meal for me. And then I went and joined. There was cockroaches everywhere. I mean, there was literally cockroaches in their glasses.
I would be Googling spiritual meaning of cockroaches.
It was basically like, Greta, get out. Just get out.
And I think it's such a good and important point. I was actually thinking about this earlier in the week. I was telling you that on Monday I got a call from News Talk. I was sick, my son was sick, and they were like, and I told the universe, like I've been telling the universe, you know, like I'm going to slow down. October is going to be a slow month. It's my birthday month. I don't need to rush. I don't need to do everything. And I get the call from News Talk and they're like, can you come on our radio station at 12:40? And I'm like, I need to take my son to the doctor. My voice is hoarse. I'm a bit sick, but I'm going to do it. And you know what? I think if you don't make the right choices and you don't go with your gut instinct, the universe will kick your ass and it will make you choose. So then I ended up in Temple Street with my son. But I actually reflect on that and be like, you didn't follow your gut. You weren't supposed to take that on. You were supposed to say no. You were supposed to put your family first. You're supposed to put your health first. And you didn't. And look what's happened. The opportunity's gone now. But remember, it'll come back around. But we need to remember to really think about where we want to be and where we want to go in life. And if something's not working, you'll start to get the signs that like, maybe there is a bigger force trying to ship me back to Ireland.
Yeah, or maybe you're trying to be somebody you're not. Or, you know, maybe you have an image of yourself or you have an image of who you think people would admire or respect or something. And it's okay not to be that person, you know. And I think, I really tried to, and it was such a great example of what you're talking about. It was such a great example. I spent 6 months there trying to make everything work, trying to make friends, you know, going to bars on my own or wherever, like just trying to meet people. Trying to meet people.
You're trying to date?
Yeah, I went on a couple of dates. Everything was just a disaster, you know. And you're just, you know, I'm a pretty positive person and I can see the good in most things. But I was just like, okay, you know, I get it. This just isn't working. So when Enterprise Ireland said to me, you know, we're only going to invest if you move home, I just was like, oh my God. Despite it being a really difficult place for me to live, I was like, how am I going to move home? I went on to daft.ie and I was just looking at all the rent and I was like, I don't want to move in with housemates at this time in my life. Like I'm kind of, and then I was like, I can't move in with my parents again. It's just, I just can't do it. And, you know, I remember getting kind of panicked about what am I going to do in Dublin? How am I going to live in Dublin? And anyway, I just thought, okay, look, I'll pack up. I'll go home for Christmas. I'll figure it out. And I was like standing in the bathroom, and this is the kind of stuff that people listen to and they're like, oh, come on. Like, you know, that doesn't happen in real life. But like I was standing, and you know, that's privilege or whatever. But I was standing in the bathroom and I was just worried. And I looked in the mirror and I looked at myself. And actually, I've heard a few people talk about looking in the mirror and talking to yourself as being very powerful. I don't actually do it, but I think it is actually quite powerful. But anyway, I looked in the mirror at myself and I said, the perfect apartment is going to fall into your lap. And I don't know if I really believed it because it was such a wild thing to even consider. And sometimes I think you don't even want to think something in because you don't want to be let down. Mm-hmm. But I just said it and I kind of like pointed at myself. I was like, it's going to happen. So then I put something up on my Instagram. I was like, you know, I'm looking for an apartment if anyone knows anyone or whatever. And a friend of my sister's saw it. Or no, my sister put it up on her friend group or whatever. And a friend of hers said, oh my God, I've had such basically issues with tenants and I was about to put something up on Daft and I really don't want to have more tenants in my apartment that I don't know. Would your sister take it? And my sister was like, yeah, oh my God, of course she'll take it. Like, you know, so I went to see it. She gave me like an absolute steal. Like it was just unbelievable that happened. Again, I hope no one's listening going, well, that's very nice for you, but I'm sitting here on Daft trying to find an apartment. I suppose my point is...
But sometimes it just lines up.
It does line up. It does.
And I think it starts to line up when you are being your authentic self and you're following your path and your purpose. You'll start to see things just open up a little bit.
Yeah.
And by the way, folks, she was in Lisbon trying to recover from a serious COVID with parents who were sick at home. Like, it's not like you were like, fit, healthy, and,
Yeah.
like you had a challenging time.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And so, yeah,
let her have the fucking apartment.
Yeah. But it was interesting. The minute I moved home, everything started to fall into my path, like, and I do think that was because I was back in the place that I should have been. And I was, anyway, I everything started to work then. So got the investment, was able to launch the business. And yeah, I started to live my best life then. All of a sudden. Do you know, it's so weird. I look back at that time now and I really felt like I had nothing. Like I was on social welfare for a lot of the time before that, while I was at home, and it just all that stuff. And I felt just very alone, very sick, all those things. And again, I don't want it to be like, boo-hoo, I've had such a sad story. But in relation to where I am now, it just feels like such a contrast. And I think I worked extremely hard to get here with my mindset. Like, it was like, you're going to get there. Like, don't deny yourself that thought, because you are going to get there. And genuinely, when I say where I am now versus where I was then, it's night and day. There is just no comparison. In my career, in my personal life, like everything, it has just changed. And I remember thinking, I watched The Secret documentary. I've watched it like 6 times because I always get something new from it. But at one point in it, someone says, your friends and family look at you and they're like, why does everything always work out for you? And everything seems to work out for you and stuff. And you're like, it doesn't. I work really hard at that. And there are times now where I feel like, I get that, people are like, oh, well, you're just so lucky and that just works for you. And, and I'm like, well, it might seem that way, but actually I worked extremely hard at keeping my mind in a positive place when all around me was not proving that I was in a positive place, basically. So
I absolutely love that. And I 100% just really get that. And I say to people all the time myself, I say, there's nothing special about me, folks. If I can do it, you can do it. I didn't grow up in money or anything like that. The difference between me and you, or me and another person who feels like they're not manifesting their life, is my mindset, how I react to challenges, how I don't sweat the small stuff. It's really, your mindset is your key to success.
Mm-hmm. But it's like a muscle. Like, it takes training. And it took years, and I'm still training it. But I think people read the book or they watch a documentary or Joe Dispenza or Abraham Hicks or whatever it is, and they're like, I'm going to be super positive and stuff. And it doesn't happen overnight. And then they're like, I think it's bullshit, to be honest, and that's fair, because it just, the day you plant the seed is not the day you see the flower. You have to wait. And that consistency and persistence can be very conflicting, because nothing around you is showing that it's working.
And it can take years.
Yeah, it can take years, yeah. It definitely did. It took years for me. Years. But I really feel it now, and I see it all around me, and I see the people who aren't in it, and I feel for them without sounding condescending or patronizing. I feel like if only you could understand that you have the power within you to change, if you could just change your mind. Like, my dad is a great example. He is the most incredible man. So he was the one that said, we're so lucky or whatever. He had a tumor in his leg in 2019 and basically, got infected. He had to get the leg taken off. And like the other day I was sitting with him and I was like, Dad, how do you stay so, like, he works every day, he goes into work in his automatic car, and he does everything. He dresses really well every day. He never ever was a victim. And I said, like, how are you so positive? How are you? And because he's not someone who walks around like positive, but he's just not negative. Yeah. And he was like, well, anytime I start to think, why me, I remember these 6 things. I didn't wake up in a hospital having been in a car crash when my leg was taken off and didn't know. I had months to get used to the idea. I have an amazing wife that takes care of me. I have an amazing family that take care of me. I was in my 70s when it happened. I wasn't in my teens. That some people, he has these 6 things that he reminds himself basically every day of how lucky he is to be the person that he is, even though, like my aunt said to me recently, she was like, I don't know how he gets out of bed every day. Like if I was him, I'd just want to be dead. It's so hard, his life. And I'm like, yeah, but he feels lucky. That's the difference. Like his mindset is that he feels lucky.
And he's probably grateful for the other leg.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he is. He's grateful for the other leg. And if you feel any day, I feel like I just look at him and I'm like, wow.
It's so much perspective, isn't it?
It is. It's perspective. Yeah. And that's all we need is perspective.
Yeah, and if you're going along, I always find that if you're going along and you're moaning, complaining, you're complaining about something, the bills, the this, my house, the water. I used to complain about the dribbling water in our apartment. It was terrible. And then you know what happens? The universe will give you something to complain about. The universe will throw you something to be, like you'll get a bomb and you'll be like, oh my God, I was complaining about. Like I remember, I always say this, that we were living in this tiny apartment on Ringsend Road and it was small and I got pregnant the first time. And I said to my husband, I'm not living in this apartment. We have this baby. Like, we need to get a house, blah, 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 blah. This tiny apartment, the water's so cold, it dribbles out. I was used to, in California, the water, like you're literally like a hurricane coming down on your head. Here, the electric showers with the dribble, dribble, dribble. I'm like, it's freezing. The water was never piping hot.
Yeah.
And I was complaining. And then I had my first miscarriage. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, I'd live in this stupid apartment. I'd live in this apartment if only I was going to have this baby. That's, you're complaining about the little things in life.
Yeah. And the ironic thing is, it's appreciating the little things that gets you to this state.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, I think if, for example, if I looked at myself now, back in 2020, 2021, when I was in Lisbon, if I could see myself now, I'd be like, oh my God, like that's amazing. You've got your own apartment, you've got this great relationship, you've got the businesses flying, like you've got everything you want. And yet it's the things like yesterday, I was in Tesco and I found frozen mashed potato. And I thought this was like the greatest thing ever because I hate peeling potatoes. It's one of my most hated kitchen tasks. And I sent a photo to my family and I was like, it just doesn't get better than this. Like, this is as good as it gets. And my family were like, oh my God. But it's finding this joy in these tiny little things, not the big things, because the big things are just amazing. And you're kind of like, look, they're going to come and that's great. And doing a podcast to you, that's amazing. But it's like oh my God, this is a great coffee.
As I've gotten older, honestly, it's just the little things.
Yeah.
Grabbing my coffee.
Yeah.
I just was in a coffee shop before here and I bumped into an old colleague and his wife. I had just had a little conversation with them and I was like, these are the little things that you enjoy. I was just outside
and a man with a crate who was delivering stuff and he just like looked me in the eyes, was like, good morning. And I was like, good morning. I was like, how lovely is that? Like if you can't experience that, then there's no, I've got a founder friend and she said to one of my investors, she said, you just sold your company. What's it like? You've reached basically where we all want to be. And he was like, it doesn't feel any different. Like, I sold my company, but I still have every day, And I was like, if you can't enjoy these tiny things, like we're sitting here having an amazing conversation, if you can't enjoy that, then when you sell your company in 10 years or however long it's going to be, it's never going to feel as good. Like these little moments in your day are as good as it gets. Like literally, that's as good as it gets. I heard someone say like, in your marriage or in your relationship, like saying hello and saying goodbye to each other. If you could just spend 6 minutes greeting each other and like giving each other a hug and a kiss or whatever at the end of the day or in the morning or whatever it is, if you that's cumulative. Like that, you can't put that stuff off to the holiday that we're going to take in 2 weeks or we're going to take a weekend break and then we'll connect and then I'll be nice and then it has to be a few minutes every day. Otherwise, putting it off means you're not going to enjoy it when you get it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I think it's one of the lessons that I actually learned while manifesting. Kind of, I was just like, thinking to myself that I used to always say, I'll be happy when I'll be so happy when I get the baby.
Yeah.
I'll be so happy when I get the baby. And then when I got pregnant with the baby, I was made redundant. And then I obsessed about getting a job. And my husband was like to me, Yvonne, all you wanted was this baby. And now all you want is the job. Can you not be happy?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the reality is we need to be happy.
Oh, yeah.
Now.
Yeah. And that's it. That's the key to everything. Just find the happiness in the smallest of things. And all the other things will work itself out. The big stuff will figure it out.
And it takes work. Just like you said.
Oh my God, it takes so much work. And we all have bad days when
we're all going to have shit days. That just happens, right? We're all going to have shit days. But you're back in Ireland. Guys, we have to talk about Greta's company. First, we have to finish off the first company. What happens? You get investment, Enterprise Ireland.
Everything was going great. Launched it. And then ChatGPT came along last summer and basically ruined the whole thing.
And that's because someone can say, right, tell me a story, tell me something about how to start manifesting or something. So your blogs are gone.
We were selling blogs. So our thing was, we didn't have any, it wasn't news blogs, so it wasn't anything time sensitive. So it was evergreen stuff. So it was like, when your kid is having a tantrum, here's 5 things you could do, or how to make a cake, or gardening, or whatever it was. ChatGPT's absolute, an expert at that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I dug my heels in and I was like, no, people want human experience. People want,
the human story,
the human story and everything. Fair. And I think that's true. But one VC said to me, that's probably true, but most people want good enough, and ChatGPT is good enough and it's free. So your business is not going to scale. I went over to San Francisco in March last year to try and get investment. And I was essentially laughed at. Like, they were like, no, this is the antithesis of AI, what you have. This isn't going to work. You're not going to get investment.
How did you feel after that?
I just was like, it was a very, very hard time. Last summer I thought, is this it? I've put all this work, all these years, all this money into this thing, and now it's just been obliterated overnight. What am I going to do? And
you got funding. You had gotten funding from Enterprise Ireland.
Had put money into this. Like, investors had put money. Now, I know investors have the money. It's always a risk. Blah blah blah. But you're responsible for that money. And I just felt a huge amount of pressure. And I was like, I can't believe this could all be over. I definitely had an anxiety kind of attack where I felt like my chest was, tight and everything. And I went to my GP. She was amazing. She was like, look, you need a break, which you can't really take. But, she was great. She listened to me. And I just, I remember thinking, okay, there's so many things against you right now. So ChatGPT, the money's, dwindling out of the account. You've got employees, they have mortgages. Like, how are you going to cope with this? And I just thought, okay, what do you have? Okay, so you have a platform that 100,000 people have signed up to. That's a lot of people.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
How can you make those people money? Because that was my thing. I just wanted to make people a side hustle. How can you make those people money? Okay, well, they might not be making money from written, but maybe they could make money from video. Video is something that AI obviously is completely disrupting at the moment, but something authentic it can't do. So I thought, I was looking at my own Instagram and stuff, and I could see people reviewing products, and I could see kind of the influencer thing was dwindling a little bit, in that maybe 10 years ago it was much more effective for me anyway. And you have to base your business on yourself, I think, otherwise it's not going to work. So
you mean you have to base, like,
you have to build a business based on something that you yourself have a problem with, Otherwise I think it's never going to work, because it's not an issue that you feel. So how can you care about it enough to solve it?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I wasn't buying from influencers anymore, because I felt like, anytime I saw #ad or gifted or something, I was like, ugh, I don't trust it. I don't believe you.
This is what I love about your new business, because I'm in a group with lots of entrepreneurs that are much, much bigger than me, that have budgets for marketing, and we all share our stories. And we share our stories. I haven't paid anybody to market my products. It's just not there yet. But I know other people have. And some of those influencers with the massive accounts, they're just not bringing in that sort of money, because I think what's happening is people are just getting sick of the ad. I'm like, well, do you actually like it? Do you actually like the product? So even for me, recently I was using Nancy Costello's The Bell Brush, and I just put it on my stories. I was like, guys, if you manifest anything in your life, manifest this Bell Brush. It's amazing. It's a brilliant brush. And she sent me a message. She's like, Yvonne, we're just after getting in a raft of sales. Now I had 7,000 followers. It's not a big following, but people know if I put something up. So I think we're going to go back to that authenticity. And I think this is where your business is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, I think trust is such a big thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a reason that you buy things that your friends and family recommend to you. Because you know they purchased it, you know that they spent their hard-earned money on it, and they're like, yeah, I'm telling you, I tried it, and it's good. And you're like, okay, well, I trust you because, you know, you're my friend or whatever. So I thought if I could enable my 100,000 people who've signed up to open up their bathroom cabinet or their kitchen cabinet and just pick out something that they really endorse, that they're like, yeah, I would tell anyone to buy this. I really do believe that this is good stuff. Get them to do a 30-second video on it, and then I could try sell that back to the brand as an ad. So, yeah, that was it. I mean, the idea kind of came to me. I don't even know how it came to me, but it came to me. I suppose my point there is that I stopped thinking about everything that was going wrong, and I started to think, just park all the things that are going wrong and think, what do you have and what can you do with what you have? So yeah, again, I called Enterprise Ireland, and I really thought that I would get a slap on the wrist, because I thought they'd be like, this isn't what we invested in, like, you know. And I said, look, this is the situation. A headwind came along. It was ChatGPT. It was a huge tech thing that I know we all knew was coming. I don't think anyone thought it was going to be, the uptake was going to happen globally overnight. And it was a direct hit to marker content. But I have thought about it, and I think I can do something with what I have. And they were like, yeah, you know, Greta, like, we've supported you up to now. We think it's a great pivot. We will support you. They gave me a grant, and they continue to support me. I mean, I just can't, but like, that's a huge privilege. And, you know, I think Enterprise Ireland are really amazing. They are, and it's not easy, and sometimes it can be difficult, but they are amazing. So anyway, I was able to build a new platform, a very basic MVP, a minimal viable product, to try and get some investment. And yeah, since then it's been much easier, because it's such an easy thing to explain to people, and investors are like, oh yeah, I get that. That's really,
and
brands,
how has it not been created before?
Well, how has it not been created before?
This is exactly.
It's funny because I'm dealing with like big enterprise companies. So like I'm talking to, see, it's like smaller companies aren't interested in it, because they actually need influence. They need someone with 100,000 followers to be like, this is a great mascara, because it's totally unknown. So they need people to find out about something. Whereas it's the big companies that don't necessarily need the exposure. They just need the volume of content, because the algorithms now, TikTok and Instagram in particular, it's not like you could put one piece of content out and it'll stay up for a week. It'll be gone, you know. And so they need a huge amount of diversity. They need 20 different people talking about one product that all look completely different, different stages of life, you know, different demographics, like everything, just talking about one product. And when you think of a company like Estee Lauder, how many brands do they have? Same with Unilever, same with P&G. Like, they have just tons of brands on the shelves, and they've so much content to fill. And the best thing about those companies is everybody has something on their shelves. So I mean, again, it happened. And I'm so grateful for ChatGPT, because I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me and my business, because it forced me to, and I think Marker Content, the original, the blog marketplace, would have been amazing 10 years ago. I think COVID really put a spanner in it, maybe if I'd released it in 2018, 2019 even. But the fact that I was out for that long, and then I only released it in 2022, things had changed even in that space of time. So it was one of the best things that happened to me. And again, it's a great example of being like, oh my God, things couldn't be worse. Like, you know, and then being like, no, that was just a redirect. That was just, I'm going to close this door, but I'm going to open this window. And, you know,
I'm going to climb in that window. I'm going to get that investment. This is going to work. So it's marker video now.
It's marker video now.
But what the way it works, though, is you have to get like a little... is like a QR code on your product? Is that the way it works?
Well, that's the end goal, hopefully. Yeah. So, you know, we're now talking to kind of supplement companies and cosmetic companies and stuff we're talking to about getting the QR code printed on their products so that people are like, oh, I can just scan it and review it really quickly and then on video. And then we accept it and then we sell that review back and you get $100 if it's sold.
Yeah, so the person who makes the video, so if I come on with the bell brush, say, as an example, if you use the video and you sell it to the founder of the bell brush, I, as a user, because you're going to say, well, what's in it for me? Mm-hmm. I get money.
Yeah, you get paid. And the best thing about it is for the creators, and I've always been creator first, which investors don't really want to hear because they're like, we want you to be brand first. We want you to be money, you know. But I'm like, if we can focus on the creators and make them happy and make it something that people, like college students, for example, if they're all talking like, I just made 200 quid on the app because, you know, that's my drinking
it's Friday
money.
night and we want to go out.
And they know how to use a video. So we're doing a big campaign in the colleges in the States coming up. But yeah, it's the brands that like everyone has. So like Vaseline, you know, everyone has that, or like Coleman's mustard or Heinz ketchup. And all these brands don't necessarily want, they don't want people being like, this is the best thing ever because blah, blah, blah. They want to be like, I found out about this from my mom 30 years ago and she, blah, blah, blah. Or like, I use Coleman's mustard on my, you know, roast chicken because blah, blah, blah. How you're using the brand, a different way to use it, you know, something that's unique to you. That's all really, really important and really valuable, which I just love because I'm like, yes, like we're going back to listening to people. Customers, you should be rewarding your customers. These customers are sitting there in the pub telling their friends about this product. They should be rewarded for that. They're responsible for those 5 sales, you know? Yeah. And if you're going to talk about a brand like Coleman's Mustard or Vaseline or something, that could be bought by Coleman's Mustard. It could be bought by Super Value. It could be bought by Walmart. Anyone that sells that product can use that on their thing. So you could get $500 or, you know, $1,000 for one video about one product that is sold in multiple different retailers, which is great earning potential, I think.
And then you got listed as like one of the top tech SaaS companies to be
it's coming out hopefully.
Oh.
No, that's okay.
We can edit this
out.
I
don't think it's embargoed. Okay. It's Wired magazine. So they have.
When's that coming out?
I think it's December.
Okay, I can edit this out.
No, don't. But yeah, we just got selected as TechCrunch. So TechCrunch is a big tech magazine, and they have a flagship event every year in San Francisco, and they pick 200 startups around the world to pitch for all the journalists, all the tech journalists in San Francisco. And it's basically an event to discover new startups. So like Dropbox were one of them. They pitched for 2 minutes. That's how they were discovered, kind of huge. So we were selected as that. And that to me is like one of my things in my vision board and in my vortex and all that stuff was San Francisco, California, going over, you know, and that's I've arrived.
Yeah.
So that'll be really exciting.
That is unbelievable.
Well,
doesn't manifestation sometimes feel like it happens and you're like, oh my God, it's just so unbelievable. And then you think to yourself, well, if I really think about it, I manifested it.
Yeah, it is.
You know?
And like I have friends, when I got the TechCrunch thing, I have a friend and she lived with me years ago when I was like, you know, I was temping in different offices. I didn't, you know, I just was doing, like, I think I temped in 13 different offices in 1 year kind of thing. But I still had my vision boards and I had, you know, all this stuff. And I bumped into her the other day and she was like, I saw on LinkedIn, you're going to TechCrunch, like. And I was like, yeah, you know, and to me it was just like, yeah, I know, it's great or whatever. And she was like, I mean, this is it. Like, you're there, you made it. This was your dream. You know, and she had to remind me that, like, this is how far I've come. I'd kind of almost forgotten. Like, yeah. You know, when it's happened so slowly, you sometimes can forget to look back and be like, yeah. that was my dream. So now you have to go, oh my God, what's the next dream?
Totally. And can we, because I know we're going to be finishing up soon, but can we talk about the soulmate?
Oh,
can you please tell people the soulmate story?
So yeah, well, I mean, I was single for 5 years, and like 2 of those years were COVID. So I think COVID was particularly rough on single people. And
you also felt when you were in the hospital, when the doctor was like, well, who's taking care of you?
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going back to my parents. I don't have anybody in my life. I'm single.
Yeah.
I live with my parents. Like,
you know, there was a moment in the hospital where one of the guys in cardiology came in to my room, and he was like, can I just do a few tests? And I said, yeah, no problem. And he was this lovely Brazilian man. He was just gorgeous. And he came in and he said, yeah, can I? And I said, yeah. And he said, hold up your left hand. And I was like, okay. And he started to kind of feel my left palm and started to like hold my left hand, but he was feeling for different pulses or whatever. And it occurred to me, I had not been physically touched in over a year. Like, you know, I was living with my parents, but during COVID, nobody touched each other. Nobody hugged each other because everyone was so afraid. And he was holding my hand, and I was like, oh my God, I have not had physical touch, like a human touch, in that long. And human touch is one of our most basic needs. I mean, you know.
We all need it.
Yeah. And it was just, yeah. So.
And then you're like, are you single?
Yeah.
I pull over these curtains. I think my heart can manage this one.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. I mean, I definitely, obviously I was dating and all that kind of stuff. But when I came back to Dublin, I was like, okay, everything's working now. And I want to kind of focus on meeting somebody. And so many, you know, anyone who's been single, which is everybody, knows all the different phases you go through. You know, you're kind of like, I don't know, there's just so many different phases I think people go through when they're single. It's a very lonely time. And I think anyone who's single now, I always have such empathy and compassion for, because I'm like, people underestimate how hard it is to be single, especially as an adult, like in your 30s, because everyone around you is getting married and everybody, you know, and you definitely, now having said that, I was living on my own in Dublin and I really loved living on my own. But I made this list, this very particular list of this person that I wanted to bring into my life. And it was so specific. Like, it was like, you know, number one, it was like, you know, this is how he speaks to his parents or speaks about his parents. This is how his friends speak about him. Like, this is how he views, how he manages his, I don't know, like everything. This is how he manages his health. This is how he you know, there really specific things that I think maybe if somebody else,
parents, you were saying to me how he
treats
your parents,
how he treated my parents, you know, things that he might say to me, like just very specific things that I think if somebody else maybe read it, they'd be like, oh, that's interesting. I would never think that. Or I would, you know, it has to be so specific to you. And it's not just this blanket, like tall, dark, handsome, successful, you know, compassionate, blah, blah, blah. Specific, like what traits. And but I think what's important as well is, and so many people say this when you read the books and you listen to the podcasts, and you know, you have to be that person. You know, you write the list and then you say, okay, I have to embody that person. Because if you're going to write this list of this perfect person, then you're going to go out and be the opposite of that and like be like, well, I'm just going to, you know, why would somebody want to be with you if you're not going to be this person that you admire? Because it's about respecting yourself and about respecting them. And respect is like the biggest thing. I think I probably learned that from my parents. So anyway, I wrote this list and then I really started to focus on work and everything. And anyway, I met this guy and I remember he texted me on we hadn't met yet. We met on a dating app. And it was like a very rainy January night. And I was watching Netflix and I was like drinking a cup of tea and I was just so content. I was so happy.
Living your best life.
Living my best life. I was just like, ugh. And he texted. I remember my phone went and I was like, I just thought, I don't know why anyone would want to be in a relationship. Like, this is just so lovely what I have. You know, why doesn't anyone want the complicated, you know, dating thing? And there's just, you know, I was kind of over it at that stage. And I was like, he was like, do you want to go for a drink? And I was like, yeah, okay, fine. Let's go for a drink on Friday or whatever. And it was only really recently, that was 2 years ago, it was only recently that I showed him the list. I was like, look at this list that I wrote. And he was like, oh, you obviously wrote that like
Yesterday?
recently, And I was like, no, I'd look at the date because it was in my phone app. I was like, or my notes. It's like, look at the date. I wrote that 6 months before we met. And he was just blown away. He was like, that's so weird.
I did that for my husband. I initially was always choosing the person. Tell this to everybody: the guy in the gym, the guy in the office, whatever. Never worked out. And then I went to a talk by Mike Dooley, who was like quoted in The Secret, and he's the notes from the universe.
Yes.
I love the notes from the universe.
Yeah.
And he said, stop choosing the person, choose the qualities.
Yes.
And I was quite specific as well, but I also had to match that. Like I would put like financially independent, because I'm financially independent. It's really important to me. And I just put stuff like loyal, I'd been cheated on. And then I just said, just adores me,
Yeah.
And 2 months later, I met him. And I just do really think it's really important to write down the qualities, but match those qualities.
Yeah.
But also, a lot of people who are doing my manifestation challenge at the moment are like, I really want to meet somebody, but you know what? I'm just fat and ugly, and I'm just not happy in myself. I'm like, okay, girl, you got to work on yourself first.
Yeah. And as well, I do think it's hard when people say to you, it'll come along when you're ready. Or, that's really difficult to hear when you're single, because you're like, do you know what? I know loads of people that met when they were a mess.
I was ready, though. And I was ready for a long time. I was like, I'm ready.
Yeah, but I was ready for a long time as well.
Hello.
I was ready for ages. But you might be ready. And so it's really hard when people say, well, you're obviously not ready to meet somebody. Because if you are ready, you are ready. So don't listen to that. You've done the work. You love yourself. You are in a good place in yourself. You're a good place in your career. All of the things, you've done everything that everyone says to do. That can be true. But it can also be true that the other person that you're meant to be with isn't ready. So you just have to wait.
Trust
the timing. Trust the timing. But I that's hard. It's really hard. So I know how hard it is. Anyone listening that is single and is like, I've done everything.
I trust the timing so much more now because of all my experiences with meeting the soulmate, finally having the babies, and it's the first time ever in my life that I'm like, I'm not in a rush anymore. I don't give a shit when this stuff happens, because I actually know it's going to happen, and I really just want to enjoy the journey. And finally.
But hindsight's 20/20, and it's much easier to look back, and it all makes sense when you look back.
And I know that if I'm 41 in October and I was single, there would be an element of panic, like, where the fuck is he?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. You do.
But you can have that panic at 25.
I did.
Well, so did I.
I was 25. I was like, where is he?
Imagine you could look at yourself now at 25 and be like, oh my God.
I made him marry me. He was 30 years old. I look back and I'm like, that poor guy. I had my whole wedding booked and everything before. I was like, I think I'm going to get engaged in October for sure. So I booked the whole wedding in July for the following year. When he proposed, I was like, so how does the 3rd of July sound to you? And he was like, yeah, it's an odd year, which I knew because no football is on. Like, imagine. And I look back at it now, I was like, oh my God, I was in such a rush.
A rush, yeah.
We were babies.
I know. We still are, though.
I'm not sure I'm a baby.
You are. You are, definitely.
Well, listen, I think life is good. Last question for you. What are you manifesting now?
So I'm going out for a big round of funding, which will be, So I'm probably, I'm going to get it, of course.
You are.
So that'll be big in San Francisco.
When's that, at the end of this month?
That's the end of this month.
Yeah.
I'd like a house. That would be nice. You know, I'm in the apartment, which I love, but it's definitely, the shower is temperamental.
Write it down in your manifestation box.
It's definitely going to be something that I look back, hopefully in 10 years, and be like, remember that place I lived with the shower didn't work and stuff? But I love it. I mean, there's nothing about it I don't love. But I'm ready to kind of level up in my house situation. And then just like loads of different things. But I'm so happy,
It's amazing how quickly your life can change. Mm-hmm. And you'll have all these full I've been recently, it's funny because 7 is like my magic number. And this year is like from when I started trying to have a baby and everything happened, it's the 7th year. And I'm having all these full circle moments. Wow. It's crazy. Like, for example, when I was at Wellfest, I was listening to Jerry Hussey crying because I was like, when am I going to have a baby? And I asked him, what do you do, for your mindset if you're struggling to have a baby? And he said, you need to let go. And then then a couple of years later, last year, I was at Wellfest. I was talking about him. He appears behind my back, Jerry Hussey, and today I'm interviewing him.
That's incredible.
And I'm just like, same happened. I got asked to do a corporate workshop in the Beacon Hospital. And years ago, I was there with a recurrent miscarriage specialist. And like now it's just come full circle. I'm back in the hospital giving corporate talks. And I just feel like someday, if you just keep going, if you keep going and you keep working on your mindset and you don't give up and you're persistent and you're consistent, you're going to have these moments where you look back and you're going to be like, oh, I wouldn't take anything back that's happened to me. And everything's worked out even better than I could have expected.
Yeah, exactly. You just got to keep the faith.
You got to have faith. You do not want me singing in here. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome.
You're going to be back because before we started the podcast, I congratulated Greta on her investment in San Francisco. That's called manifesting, folks. So, you know, and I always say it's this or something better.
Yeah, exactly.
For everything in life.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's this or something better.
Just have to keep going.
Keep going.
Just keep swimming.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.